mute myself to check the sound, whether it's okay, and I will handle everything, all the questions, I will bring it up, and I will also admit the people, so don't worry. We are live now, you can start.
Okay. All right, so I'm Afzan, also known as Baban, and I'm here to talk about managing mental illness and also career. All right, so as we know, mental illness is something that is not visible. On the outside, somebody might look like they're smiling, they're happy, they make jokes, they are funny, but on the inside, they're actually suffering alone, sometimes alone, and they do not share their feelings with others for fear of being stigmatized, of being judged, for a whole lot of other things, right? So I'm going to show you a few examples. I'm sure everybody knows who this is. This is The Rock. And he actually suffered from depression. And his mother attempted suicide when he was 15 years old. And yet he manages to overcome all that and be the successful actor that he is now. And this is Prince Harry. He also suffered from depression, especially after the loss of his mother. He was pushed into the limelight immediately after his mother passed away, but he kept it all bottled up inside and lived like for 20 years without treatment for depression. And as a result, he suffered and lashed out for a total of 2 years without of life of chaos. And thankfully, after that, he knew that he had to seek treatment, and he did that. And now he is a very vocal advocate for mental health. This is Robin Williams. He's a comedian. He's funny. He made people laugh. Unfortunately, he was also battling severe clinical depression, and he died by suicide in the year 2014. So if we look at him, we wouldn't know that he was suffering, because he was always making jokes. He was always so funny, always laughing. And unfortunately, I don't know if it was none, but probably a whole lot of people in his circle didn't know that he was suffering from clinical depression. And then there's Catherine Zeta-Jones, also also a successful actor, and she has bipolar disorder, and she too has been very vocal about her condition, about how the mood swings affected her relationship, her family, her friends, even her career. Now, this is a local example. I'm not sure how many of you know Yassin Sulaiman, but he also suffers from bipolar disorder and had to be warded for 2 weeks at a psychiatric hospital because of his condition. Another local example, Nohujan. He's a singer. He has anxiety and also depression, and yet he is still successful. I know all the examples I gave are all celebrities, but I guess because they are celebrities, they have the platforms to be vocal and to speak about their condition, whereas people like me, who are sort of like a quasi celebrity, we do talk about our condition, but we don't get as much coverage as celebrities do. All right, so does the word mental scare you? When we talk about mental illness and mental health, there is always fear. We always think that it's like a darker side of ourselves. It affects our social skills. It affects our performance at work. We might get fired for it. We might turn to drugs. We might lose money. We lose our self-esteem, and most importantly, we lose love, because when people with for example, myself, when I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I felt like if people knew about my condition, would they still love me the same? And that is something that these are all the typical thoughts that run in the minds of every single one of us, I guess, when we talk about mental illness. Now, the fear of speaking up about mental illness is due to shame. We tend to feel a bit ashamed if people find out that we have been diagnosed with mental illness. Most probably because of the words that are being said to us, so we feel ashamed of it, as if we had done something that caused ourselves to have this mental illness. And then there's judgment from everybody around us in our circle. People would say things to us like, "Oh, you should have done better. Don't be so weak," and things like that. And there's also fear, because we don't, unlike physical diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and such, there are physical symptoms, physical traits that we can see and we can treat. It's physical, we can see it. But as mental illness is something that is almost invisible, we fear it because it's like going into the dark with your eyes blindfolded. It's bad enough that it's dark, but you're blindfolded as well. And then there's the guilt. It's what we feel, because we feel like we have not done enough to take care of ourselves, and that is normal for people with mental health issues. Words from other people like, "You're so weak," tak cukup iman, which in Malay means you're not pious enough, you're not religious enough. And this is also in Malay, "Hidup kau dah sempurna, cuba bersyukur sikit," which means you already have a perfect life and you should be grateful for that. And then there are others who have it worse than you. "You're crazy." Crazy is a word that also brings a whole lot of stigma towards people with mental illness. Orang lain boleh ada masalah juga. Other people also have problems. Some might even have it worse than you. It's all just in your head. You're not depressed, you're just lazy. Jangan mengada-ngada lah. It's like, don't be ridiculous, you're not sick. Things like that. Okay, so this is a news article about a man who died by suicide. The original article states that the man commits suicide in Masjid al-Haram, but the correct term would be died by suicide instead of commit suicide, because when you use the word commit, we put the onus on the person who was already suffering from mental health issues, and we are putting all the blame on him. So we prefer the term died by suicide. And the reason I'm putting this up is because remember just now there was a phrase or saying that you're not religious enough. Well, this man, he's from France. He was from France, and he was performing the Umrah, or the pilgrimage in Makkah, which is a sacred place for Muslims, and only the pious normally gets to go there and perform this pilgrimage. And yet he died by suicide inside the holy mosque. So this is to show that even the most pious of us can be affected by mental health issues. Okay, this article is in Malay. It's stating that mental illness is a silent killer, and which is true, because not many people are talking about it. Okay, now this is also, I'm sorry, the article is in Malay. It says that employers must play their role in handling mental health issues of their employees. And the paragraph highlighted in yellow is stating that mental illness is becoming the second biggest health concern right after heart disease. All right, let me start with a little bit of history. I am an architect, and I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in the year 2019, but I have lived all my life with symptoms of bipolar disorder and did not know about it, because I never thought that I could actually be, to put it bluntly, mentally ill. I lived a relatively normal life, except for the times when I was experiencing symptoms of depression and also hypomania. And I thought that was just part and parcel of my own character, my own personality. Little did I know that I was sick. Until 2019, a major event triggered a huge depressive episode. I was at my lowest point. I was already having suicidal thoughts. I did not want to live. It's not saying that I wanted to die per se, but I just felt like the only way to stop this pain that I was feeling was just to end it all. All right, the diagnosis. During mania episode, or in my case, hypomania, because I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder instead of bipolar 1. So if someone is diagnosed with bipolar 1, the high episode is called the mania episode. And for me, it's hypomanic. And the symptoms are there: talking excessively, racing thoughts, hostility or irritability in my case, less sleep, and delusions. And then in the depressive stage, I would feel extremely tired, prolonged sadness, more than 2 weeks of feeling sad and sometimes feeling numb, and then memory loss and also poor nutrition. So what were the triggers? Childhood trauma. I was molested when I was very, very young. I was 7 or 8. And that probably was the biggest trigger in my life that caused all the bipolar symptoms, the subsequent episodes to manifest themselves. And then family expectations. I am the eldest in the family, so even my siblings look up to me. I was always expected to perform well academically. As the eldest, I felt it is my responsibility to make everybody proud of me, without realizing that I need to be proud of myself first. And then relationship. I have to be honest with you, in 2019, it was a broken relationship that triggered the depressive episode. To the people around me, to the people who probably just knew me, all they saw was a woman who was heartbroken, and it drove her to having suicidal thoughts. But what people need to understand is that there is never just one reason that would lead someone to have suicidal thoughts. It's like the domino effect. One domino falling on top of each other, and then towards the end, the relationship, the failed relationship was just the straw that broke the camel's back. But there were other triggers before that drove me to that point where I just didn't want to live anymore. Now, when I'm having during hypomania, I would be the friendliest girl on earth that you would know. I would talk to strangers. I would compliment people for no reason at all. Sometimes because I just have to. It was always this compulsive behavior that I just become very social. I meet people and I talk a lot to people. Whereas I actually am quite the homebody. I don't really like crowded places, but during hypomanic episodes, I would be out there just showing the world, like, here I am, girl. This is, I guess I would call it the positive side of hypomania, which is the creative flow is just endless. The ideas that run in my head would just be like one after another. But the problem with that is I also would be having racing thoughts. All these ideas come through my head like flowing water. there's no stop, there's no pause. Everything comes out. I would barely have time to write it down or to act upon the ideas in my head. My best ideas normally would come during this period. And but I would always have trouble focusing because of the racing thoughts. All right, the last symptom, and this is the symptom that affected me the biggest way possible. I am always a responsible person when it comes to my own financials. But during hypomanic episode in 2019, I had a major hypomanic episode and I cleaned out my entire life savings. I had zero at the time. I spent it all. I spent it all on gifts for other people. I didn't spend it all on myself. I bought extravagant gifts for my friends, for my families. At that time, a lot of people wanted to be my friend. I have to tell you that. All right, then the depression. Now, during depression, I had suicidal thoughts. And it's not just, I was not actively seeking ways to die, but I would get very upset when I wake up in the morning. Like, why am I waking up? Why am I still alive? Why couldn't I just sleep forever? Because when I was sleeping, I couldn't feel anything. Sleeping was my escape. There was no pain. I didn't feel any pain in my sleep. And if I could just sleep forever, then I would never have to deal with the pain anymore. Feeling numb. And the numbness is not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally. I wouldn't say that, I know that when we mention depression, people always associate it with being sad. But a lot of times that sadness turns into numbness, where you just don't feel anything anymore. It's because you feel life just doesn't seem worth it anymore. You yourself are just not worth living for. That's how you feel. Excessive sleeping. Like I said just now, sleeping was my escape. I did not have to feel any pain. I would not have to feel any sadness, anything that bothered me at the time. I would not feel it when I'm asleep, and I would get very, very upset if I wake up, or when I wake up. And then unproductiveness. And this happens at work, where I would just sit silently at my desk, not doing anything, just staring at the monitor, my fingers on the keyboard, but I'm not really doing anything. How it affected me at work. I would feel overwhelmed. There were voices in my head. Yeah, I'm saying that metaphorically, because I didn't literally hear voices in my head, but there's this internal battle, internal conversation that caused me to overthink, and I felt overwhelmed. Irritability, the tiniest thing would get me very upset. Like, let's say I'm an architect, so my draftsmen, if they made a mistake on the drawing, which is is not a careless mistake, but I would get very upset about it. Absent. Yes, I was absent from work a lot during when I was having a depressive episode, because I just couldn't get out of bed. I was just at home and I wouldn't go to work. I would be missing from work a whole lot of times, because being in the office just made me feel trapped. So I just had to get out, and so this definitely affected my work performance. And as I said, these are all the domino effects. There's no one reason. There's never just one reason that would push someone to the edge, but rather a series of events that brings them to that point in their life. Okay, so how do I manage my disorder? I go for therapy. I started therapy in 2019, and I'm still in therapy now, and I have to admit it has helped me. Just to talk it out, just to talk about what I feel about the things that are going on in my life without judgment. Because I'm lucky because I have a good therapist. She listens well and she doesn't judge me at all, even though my point of view might be different than hers. Medication. Now, this is not for everybody. I am still on medication, and I have to take medication to manage my symptoms. But if somebody gets help as soon as they possibly can, before the symptoms turn into something worse, then there is a high chance that they don't need to take medications at all. I also changed my lifestyle. I probably am the laziest person on earth. Physical activities scare me to death. Because I sweat easily. So even just going out of my house in the hot sun would make me sweat profusely. So having to change my lifestyle, by starting to do physical activities like walking. I now walk in the gardens weekly, just to get some fresh air, and also to get just to make sure that I move and not stay static in one place. Because when we do physical activities, the happy hormones are released, and that helps a lot. Spiritual activities, this also, now this can be rather I guess controversial, because remember I said just now that having mental illness does not have anything to do with whether or not you're religious, whether you're pious, but spiritual activities do help a lot. And I don't mean just religious activities, like for me praying or reading the Quran, but also spiritual activities like connecting with myself, like theta cleansing, things like that. Now, this is also another thing that has helped me. I found my purpose. The diagnosis and also the discovery that I have been living with the symptoms all my life pushed me to be vocal and start advocacy works to encourage people to seek help as soon as they can, so that they won't have to live their life not knowing that they're sick. And through that, when I help other people, I help myself, I heal myself, and that has helped me a lot. And I started my YouTube channel, Babanology, and I interview a lot of people who are living with mental health issues. Like my first guest was this one, Kak Nga. She's a founder of Awas Malaysia, and she's a suicide loss survivor. And we all know that losing somebody to suicide, losing somebody to death, normal death alone is hard enough, but losing someone to suicide is probably, well, it's something that I would not wish upon even my worst enemy. And also, I have been appointed as the head of Camellia, which is Campaign for Mental Illness, Inclusivity and Awareness under Yayasan Zuriat Care. I started my volunteering. I started volunteering there, and I've just been appointed as the head of Camellia, which is a program under Yayasan Zuriat Care. All right, so workplace in mental health. In 2015, it was discovered that 1 in 3 Malaysians experienced mental health issues. So let's say there are 100 people in the company, then at least 30 of them may be suffering from mental health issues. And then in 2018, 4.57 million working adults reported mental health issues. And these are the 3 common mental health issues among workers in Malaysia: stress, anxiety, and depression. All right, so I guess when it comes to workplace, to businesses, you always want to talk about money. Well, let's talk about money. In 2018, mental health issues at the workplace caused a staggering 14.46 billion ringgit, and that is 1% of the GDP. Due to staff working while unwell, because when your mental health is affected, your production or your productivity will not be the same. Staff turnover, staff missing from work for health reasons. And yet in 2020, only 344 million ringgit was earmarked under budget 2020 for mental health treatment. Isn't that amazing? I mean, it cost 14.46 billion, and yet the budget allocation to treat mental health issues is only 344 million ringgit. All right, let's talk about productivity. Effective treatment can increase the number of productive workdays by 10%. And in the US, for every $1 invested into mental health care, the WHO estimates a return of $4. And that is 4 times the investment. You invest $1 and the productivity that comes out from your workers getting the help they needed, quadruples. Okay, so how does mental health impact the workplace? Performance and productivity. Now, this is common sense. When your mental health is affected, when you cannot focus, when you have so many things going on in your mind, when your mind is preoccupied with something else, it's like your body is there at work, but your mind, your heart are not. So that definitely affects your performance and productivity. Engagement in work activities, especially when it comes to tasks that involve teamwork. When you have mental health issues, it will be difficult for you to be a team player because, well, let's face it, when things are going on in your mind is not there, you're not really present. So that would definitely affect your role in the team. Daily functioning. So even the most easiest task can be the most difficult thing that someone has to do if he has a mental illness, he or she has a mental illness. Communication with others. People like me, when I was in my depressive episode, I would isolate myself from everyone, not just family members, but also from my coworkers. I didn't want to talk to any of them, and I would just sit quietly at my desk and just not deal with anyone. And that is definitely something that affects my performance. And also physical capabilities. Somebody with a mental health issues, one of the symptoms is extreme fatigue, and that is when getting out of bed even takes a whole lot of energy. So, of course, physical capabilities at work will definitely be affected. All right, so what are the signs to look for in your coworkers? When somebody is persistently feeling sad, numbness, hopelessness, emptiness, and it normally lasts for more than 2 weeks. This is definitely a sign that you need to look out for. If somebody is just simply moping around for more than 2 weeks for no apparent reason, feeling hopeless, that is one of the signs that you should look out for in your coworkers. Loss of interest in activities. In my case, I am someone who loves makeup, but when the depressive episode strikes, I would lose interest in makeup totally. If I had my way, I would go to the bathroom with my makeup on. But when the depressive episode, during depressive episode, I would just let go of myself and not wear makeup, not dress nicely, and just lose interest in the things that I would normally like to do. This is due to lethargy, extreme fatigue, no excitement. There is nothing to look forward to. Like, why do I need to put on my makeup? It's not like life it's it's not like anybody is going to compliment me on it. It's not like it would make a difference in this world whether or not I put on makeup. And again, this sign has to last more than 2 weeks for it to be a symptom of mental health issue. Trouble sleeping or oversleeping. So if you see your colleague feeling restless or having racing thoughts, or with baggy eyes for a long period of time, then perhaps it is a good time for you to approach them and ask them, is everything all right? Is there anything that you can do to help? Appetite or weight changes. Now, this goes both ways. You can either lose your appetite totally, you don't want to eat at all, or you can end up eating too much and gaining weight drastically. So it's like the opposite end of the spectrum. Nobody experiences mental health issues the same way, the exact same way. Yes, there are similar symptoms, but everybody goes through it in different ways. So some people might lose their appetite, while some people would just binge eat, just to take their mind off their problem. They would just eat. Fatigue or decreased energy. Feeling tired despite resting. And also the smallest effort takes a lot of energy. As I was saying, even getting out of bed would feel like lifting a heavy stone from your chest. Difficulty thinking clearly or quickly. Inability to focus. This is a common sign in people with mental health issues. Also racing thoughts, where it is due to the racing thoughts that they cannot focus, because so many things are just going through their minds, and it's difficult for them to finish even a single task because of the racing thoughts and their inability to focus. Irritability, frustration, or pessimism. All right, so as I mentioned just now, when I was irritability is one of the symptoms of depression, and even the smallest slight can trigger a huge reaction for me. So that's why a disproportionate reaction to small matters is also a sign that somebody is probably going through stress, anxiety, or depression. Feeling of impending doom. This is similar to having suicidal thoughts, but not quite. It's just that you feel like no matter what you do, it's bound to fail. There's no bright future ahead. Physical pains. Okay, even though mental health issues start from the brain, it can manifest itself to physical symptoms like aches and pains. Let's say somebody with who's having an anxiety attack, they would suddenly feel like their stomach is so full, and sometimes it could manifest into diarrhea. When it all starts in the head, but it can manifest itself into physical symptoms like difficulty breathing, shortness of breath, and also stomach pain, shivering. These things are inexplicable because when you go, let's say, when you go to a hospital because of these symptoms, the physical aches or pains that you're feeling, and yet when you go to the doctor says there's nothing wrong with you physically. So it is a good idea to get yourself checked out, to get yourself assessed by a psychologist or a psychiatrist if the doctor says there is nothing wrong with you physically. Recurrent thoughts of death or suicide. Thinking that dying is better. Feeling of hopelessness. They may not necessarily act on these thoughts, but these thoughts are running around in their head. There are voices in their head saying that nobody would miss you if you die. Nobody would even notice that you're gone. Things like that. It's like I, I I always believe in the saying that your depression is lying to you, because it is during depression that your brain starts telling you things that are probably not even true in the first place. Well, like for example, the example I gave you just now, nobody would miss you if you're gone, which is not true. Somebody will definitely miss you if you're gone. So what can employees do? Employees can make mental health a priority. Start enhancing mental health supports among your employees. Communicate available supports, like provide the necessary tools, the necessary help, maybe organize talks, organize forums, and maybe invite professionals or real life people with careers to share the experience, because I always find that sharing my stories are more impactful than than doctors spewing out facts. Because yeah, doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists, they can give you all the facts about mental health issues, about mental illness, but only people who are living with the condition can tell you how it feels, how do they manage it on a day-to-day basis, what is it like with their family, what are the emotions, how do they maintain the relationship, and things like that. Cultivate an inclusive culture, which means that nobody gets left out or left behind. Create this feeling of camaraderie among your workers, and not just focusing on the task or whether or not the staff can is worth the investment you make in terms of salary, but also in terms of their contribution, and also their their role in the office among their colleagues. Measure and hold accountable. Now, this means that you take accountability for, let's say, in Asia, we are Asians, and we somehow, let's say our office hours are officially from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. But for some reason with Asians, if you go back at 6 o'clock on the dot, people would look at you funny. Like, why are you leaving the office now? It's only 6 o'clock, even though the official working hours are just until 6. So let's stop doing that and just let people have a balance between work and personal life and whatever else they have to do, because life is not just about work, and employers need to know that. So what can you as employees do with your colleagues? Listen to your colleagues when they tell you something. Listen without judgment. Like, for example, maybe you don't agree with what your colleague is saying, but you are not there to tell him that he's wrong, to tell him that you are right and he's wrong, to tell him that what he's feeling is not valid. No, listen without judgment. Listen to understand what he's feeling. Practice openness. Now, I know it's very difficult in Asian culture to practice openness, and I don't mean openness as in sharing your dirty laundry with simply anybody, but at least create the environment, a safe environment for your colleagues, for your co-workers to talk openly and to talk about their feelings, to talk about whatever it is that is bothering them. Gain knowledge. Do what you can. Google, you can definitely Google a whole lot of information about mental health issues, and learn what you can. You can learn the symptoms of depression, like what I presented just now, signs that show someone is probably having mental health issues. So gain knowledge. Don't depend on your employer to to give you this knowledge. Just do it on your own, especially when you see someone, when you see your colleague and you suspect that he or she might be dealing with something. Try to find out as much as you can. The knowledge now is just at the tip of your fingers, and you can definitely at least know some basics. Build connection. I understand that your coworkers may just be that, coworkers, and not really friends. But in order to create a healthy working environment, you need to connect with each other. And when the bond is there, then it's easier for you to work as a team. It's easier for you to detect when one of your coworkers are having a problem or behaving differently all of a sudden. And trust me, this will definitely increase your productivity as a team. All right, now, if you already know what is wrong, if you feel like you may be suffering from depression or stress or anxiety, you should try and seek help where you can. Now, this is one of my close friends program. It's Awareness Against Suicide. You can always connect with them on Instagram, Facebook, and also phone number, WhatsApp only. Yayasan Zuriat Care, the organization, the NGO that I'm volunteering with, I'm the head of Camellia, which is Campaign for Mental Illness Inclusivity and Awareness. So we do try our best to help people who are facing mental health issues. And I'm also a certified mental health first aider. I cannot diagnose people, but I do have some basic knowledge, and I can at least guess what that person is going through, especially based on the symptoms that they're displaying. But as a mental health first aider, I can just guide them to the right help that they need. I cannot give them a diagnosis, but I can definitely suggest the kind of help that they need. It's similar to physical first aid, medical first aid. You just give the first aid that they need at the time, but after that, you pass on the case to the professionals, the medical doctors. Befrienders. Befrienders is well known, where if you feel like talking to anyone, you can just call them, and their line is open 24 hours. Yes, and Health on World, they also help people with mental health issues. Malaysia Mental Health Association, this is where I got my certification as a mental health first aider. So you can also contact them if you need help. MIASA, Mental Illness Awareness and Support Association. I think they are at the moment one of the biggest organization when it comes to mental health. So you can definitely approach them for help. Now, this is very important. If you are experiencing suicidal behavior and or harming yourself or others, do not wait. Do not call befrienders. Do not call MIASA. Do not call AWAS. Because when you are at such a critical point in life, you must immediately go to the emergency department at the nearest hospital and just tell them that you have been harming yourself. You've been having this extreme thoughts of death. And they will help you. So based from what I've talked about just now, is it possible to have a career when you have a mental illness? Well, definitely, because there is always hope. Having a mental illness is not the end of the world. There is always hope for recovery. I know that there are some mental illness that you just have to live with for the rest of your life, like me. I have to live with bipolar disorder for the rest of my life. But I have learned how to recognize the triggers, how to manage the symptoms, and also how to maintain relationship, friendship, and any other human connection with a whole bunch of other people. There is always hope. Treatment. With treatment, you definitely can maintain a career and be successful at it. I mean, I have been an architect since 2008. That is like 13 years. And I'm not saying there hasn't been incidents. Like I said, I have been absent a lot from work, but this was before I started treatment. But after I started treatment in 2019, I have become better at the office. Medication. Now, this is only as advised by a medical professional. There are cases that where you may not even need medication. So if you don't have to take medication, that is good. But if you have to take medication, it's also okay. I mean, if we can accept that that we have to be medicated for diabetes, for heart disease, for hypertension, some of these medications you have to take for the rest of your life. And if you see nothing wrong with that, then why should there be anything wrong with taking medication for your mental illness for the rest of your life as well? Support. Now, this is important. I think I would not have made my recovery journey without the support of my friends, my family, and also the people around me. It's okay to have a small circle, as long as this small circle are the people that you can trust, are the people that will definitely be there for you. You don't need to have 1,000 friends on Facebook. You don't need to have 1,000 followers on Instagram. If there's only 10 people in your circle, but these 10 people will always be there for you, then they are definitely worth more than the 1,000 friends that you have on Facebook. Life purpose. Like I said before, finding my life purpose has helped me recover. Healing, helping others helped me heal myself, because I started to see that there are things bigger in life that I can focus on instead of just my own suffering. Now, that is in no way minimizing what I have gone through, because everybody goes through life differently. And what I felt, what brought me to that depressive stage, to the point of having suicidal thoughts, they were all valid and they were all my life experience. And what is different is that I have learned to turn my pain into something positive that will help others, because helping others help me. And trust me, taking care of yourself is the least selfish thing you can do for the community, for your family, for your coworkers, for your friends. Because if you take good care of yourself, then you can contribute more to others. You can be of purpose to everyone else in your life. All right, so I guess that is the end of my presentation. So yes, you can always find me on LinkedIn, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Babanology. You can always catch my show where I interview people living with mental illness, and also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So thank you so much for your time.
Perfect. I will just stop the live stream and